I was about 10 when it all started. 30 years later, I still check the locks 3 times before I go to sleep. The house is different now, the street is different, but the memory walks behind me every single day. Back then, we lived in a split level on Cedar Lane, the kind of block where every lawn was mowed on Saturday and every mailbox had the same brass numbers. School would let out at 3:05, and I was always one of the walkers. Back then, my mom would work 4 to midnight at the diner on Route 12. So it was just me, my Spider-Man backpack, and the same 20-minute walk home. I knew every crack in the sidewalk. I knew where every dog lived that would bark behind every fence. I thought I knew everything. The first time I noticed him was a Thursday in October. The air smelled like wood smoke and the leaves were the color of dried blood. I was halfway down Maple when I felt it, that itch between my shoulder blades. Like someone was breathing on my neck even though I knew I was alone. I turned around fast. A man stood under the big oak by the park entrance. He had his hands in the pockets of a dark green coat. He was tall and thin. He had a hat on, but it was pulled down low. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, watching me the way you watch a clock when you're waiting for the minute hand to finally move. I started walking again, just a bit faster. My sneakers slapped the pavement. When I glanced back, he was moving too. He was matching my speed exactly. He wasn't running. He wasn't even in a hurry. He just kept up, like we were tied together with an invisible string. I told myself it was nothing. Grown-ups walk places too. But my stomach felt hollow, the way it did right before the spelling test I had it studied for. At the corner of Elm and 8th, I did something stupid. I ducked into the 7-Eleven. The bell jingled and Mr. Patel looked up from his newspaper. Looking over his glasses, he simply said, "Hey, kiddo." I pretended to browse the candy aisle while peeking outside the window. The man had stopped outside, but he was right by the payphone that nobody used anymore. He leaned against the wall. He lit a cigarette and he stared straight through the glass at me. I could see the cherry glow every time he inhaled. After a few minutes, he flicked the butt into the gutter and walked off. I waited for 5 more minutes. My heart was still jackhammering. Then I bolted the last 4 blocks home. I didn't tell my mom. She didn't come home until 12:47. I heard the key in the lock, the sigh when she kicked off her shoes. If I had told her, she'd worry. And she had already worried about money, about the electric bill, about whether or not I was eating enough vegetables. One more thing might break her. So keeping it to myself made sense to my little kid brain. On Friday, I left school with Joey and Marcus, but they turned off at the arcade. By the time I hit Maple again, the street was empty except for a wind and the rattle of a loose storm drain. I felt him before I saw him. He was wearing the same green coat, about the same distance away as he was the first time. This time, though, he carried a plastic bag that swung against his leg. I walked faster, and then he would walk faster. If I crossed the street, he would cross the street too. The bag rustled. I thought I heard paper inside, like the way they used to wrap sandwiches back in those days. And for some reason, that made it even worse. The idea that he'd planned to be out there long enough to need a lunch. I ran the last block. My key was already in my fist. When I got home, I slammed the door and locked it. I peeked through the peephole. He stopped at the edge of our lawn. He looked up at the house number, and then he turned and left. I stood there until my legs shook. That night, I dreamed he was in the backyard, pressing his face into the sliding glass door. When I woke up, the dream felt sticky, like it had left fingerprints on my skin. Saturday and Sunday, though, they felt safe. My mom was off, so we went to the laundromat and the dollar store. But on Monday, she had a double shift. "Be smart, baby," she said, just kissing my forehead and walking out the door. She turned and left and reminded me, straight home. I gave her a quiet nod like I usually do. He was waiting across from the school this time, leaning on the chain link fence by the basketball courts. No coat today, just a gray sweatshirt with the hood up. When the bell rang and kids poured out, he didn't move. He just watched. I stuck with the crowd as long as I could, but they thinned out pretty fast. By the park, it was just us again. So I decided to test him. I turned left instead of right, cutting through the alley behind the library. The alley smelled like cat pee and wet cardboard. About halfway down, I heard his footsteps echo mine. I spun around. He was 20 feet back, hands in his pockets, head tilted like he was curious what I would do next. I ran. He didn't. He just kept that same calm pace, like he knew I'd have to come out the other end eventually. I burst onto Pine Street. My lungs were on fire, and I hid behind Mrs. Kalaski's van. I waited there as I counted to 100. When I peeked, he was gone. I sprinted home. I let myself in and I called Mom at the diner. The line was busy though. I left a message with Tammy, the hostess. Tell her I'm okay, but come home early. There was no way I could sleep. Every creak in the house sounded like a footstep. At around 11:50, headlights swept through the driveway. It was my mom's car. She came in smelling like fryer grease, and I could tell that she was worried. I told her everything. How this man would match my speed, how he waited, how he knew the alley. She let me get it all out, and she listened without interrupting. Then she called the police. 2 officers came by. They both took notes, and they said they'd drive by more often. One of them, Officer Perez, ruffled my hair. Probably just a drifter kid, but stay sharp. On Tuesday, Mom kept me home. She watched some soap operas, and I was waiting for The Price is Right to come on after. Later on, she even let me have some cereal for dinner. On Wednesday, she drove me to school and picked me up after. On Thursday, same thing. I was starting to think that maybe it was over. But on Friday, the car wouldn't start. The battery was dead. My mom cursed under her breath, called a cab for work, then told me I had to walk with the Caruso twins who lived 3 houses down. She thought safety in numbers would be a good idea. Of course, the twins were late. I waited by the flagpole, and when they finally showed, the man was already across the street. We immediately locked eyes, but I don't think that the twins even noticed. They were arguing about Pokemon cards of all things. I walked between them head down, praying that he would lose interest, but he didn't. He trailed us the whole way, far enough back that the twins never saw him. When they turned into their driveway, he kept going, straight past our house, slow, like he was memorizing it. I locked the door and didn't dare look outside until my mom got home around 1. That night, the doorbell rang around 2:30 in the morning. I was asleep on the couch, pretending to be asleep so that my mom could rest. Through the peephole, I saw him there, standing there in his hoodie. I saw his face for the first time. He was thin, unshaved, but yet in his eyes, something familiar. I could tell he had something in his hand. It was a photograph. He raised it to the peephole so that I could see. It was me, though I looked to be about 4 or 5 at the time. I was sitting on an old swing set that I don't remember with a big smile and a missing tooth. On the back he had written in red marker, "I miss my boy." I screamed like I've never screamed before. My mom came running in her robe, phone already to her ear. The man didn't knock again. He just stood there until the first cruiser pulled up, the lights painting the walls red and blue. They took him away in cuffs, and he didn't fight them. He just kept saying, "That's my son. That's my Jason." Turns out his name was Richard Callahan, and my name was originally Jason Callahan, though Mom had it legally changed to her maiden name when I was about 2. Apparently Richard was my father, if you can call him that. My mom said that after I was born, Richard started hanging out with the wrong crowd. He had gotten into drugs and missed a year of child support. Eventually she had to get a restraining order against him. After that, he did something that I knew nothing about, but he landed himself in jail. Apparently he had gotten out about 6 months ago, and that's where he spotted me at the county fair. He followed us home that night. He watched, waited, and planned. They found notebooks in his car, pages of my schedule, sketches of our house, photos he'd taken from a distance. One page just said over and over in shaky handwriting, "He'll remember me. He has to." We moved 3 weeks later to a new town with a new last name. My mom never talked about him again, but I found the old photo, the one from the swing set, tucked into her Bible years later. She'd kept it face down. I'm 40 now, and I have a son of my own. and it just so happens that he's 10 years old. He walks home from school the same way I did, but I meet him at the corner every day, no matter what. I live in a quiet neighborhood just outside of Dayton. You know, the kind of place where every driveway has the same mailbox and you wave at the same people walking their dogs every morning. We've got this app we all use, kind of like a message board for the neighborhood. People post about missing cats, yard sales, or those suspicious car alerts that are almost always simply delivery drivers. I mostly scroll through it for entertainment. That is until last month. It started when someone made a post late one night titled, "Does anyone recognize this guy?" The photo showed a man walking down our street, taken from what looked like a Ring camera. The caption said something like, "He's been knocking on doors past midnight." He doesn't say anything, he just stands there. The comments blew up. People were freaking out, saying he'd been spotted on different streets, and he was always alone, always between midnight and 2 a.m. Someone said he knocked on their door but left when they turned on the porch light. Another person said he just stood there in the driveway, staring at the house for almost 5 minutes before walking off. I didn't think much of it at first. I even joked with a neighbor that it was probably some kid trying to freak people out. But then, the next night, there was another post. This one had a photo of the same guy, taken from a different house, and that's when my stomach dropped. It was a picture of me. The same jacket, my car in the background, and the same house number visible behind me. Except, I hadn't been outside at all that night, and I sure as hell wasn't knocking on anyone's door. I commented on the post, said it must be a glitch or an old image from my camera being reposted or something. But the timestamp said it was that night at 12:47 a.m., less than 2 hours before the post went up. I checked my security app just to make sure. I had no alerts. There were no recordings from that time. Just nothing. But my camera had been offline from 12:30 to 1 a.m., and it never does that. I finally put my phone down and tried to get some sleep. The next morning I went outside and looked around my porch. Everything looked normal, but the doormat was turned slightly, just a few inches off center, like someone had moved it. I told myself I was in my head and that it was probably nothing. Maybe the wind did it, or perhaps an animal. But in the back of my head I was thinking, maybe the camera did glitch somehow. Then another post went up later that day. This time it wasn't just a photo, it was a video. The caption had said, "He came back." I tapped play. The footage showed a man walking up a porch somewhere in the neighborhood. The camera's night vision made his jacket almost look white, and it took me a second to realize, but it was my jacket. He walks up the steps and pauses. Then he just stands there facing the door. The video zooms in slightly and you can see his face in the reflection of the window, and I swear to God, it looks like me. The same beard, the same hair, same weird little crease near my eye. Only his expression was blank, completely empty. The comments were blown up again. Some people thought it was AI, others said that it was edited footage. One woman said she recognized the porch in that video. It was mine. I checked my camera logs again, still nothing from that night. So I went to bed convinced it had to be fake, maybe some prank using an old image of me. But around 2 a.m., I woke up to a notification sound. Someone had tagged me in another post on the app. The caption had said, "He's outside right now." It had been posted 1 minute earlier. I didn't want to look, but I got up, walked to the front window, and peeked through the blinds. But nobody was there. So I stood there for a while just watching the street. Nothing moved except for the flag on my neighbor's porch, blowing slightly in the wind. Eventually I sat back down on the couch with my phone in hand, scrolling the comments on the post. Someone had uploaded a screenshot from a live feed, said they captured him again, and in the background of the photo you could see my house. You could see inside my living room window. That's when I noticed something. There was another figure. I couldn't tell if it was a reflection off the glass or if there was someone in the room with me, but I knew I wasn't alone. I turned around instantly, but there was nothing there. I checked outside. No one was there either. I ended up staying at a hotel that night. I had to get outside of my house. The next morning I deleted the app. I told myself I'd had enough of the paranoia, but sometimes in the middle of the night, I get a call from an unknown number. They never leave a voicemail. They never text. And when I do answer, I just hear static. I've noticed every time I check my porch camera right after the phone call, the feed always says, offline. Maybe it was all some glitch. Maybe somebody was messing with me. But every time I walk past that front window, I still catch my reflection. And sometimes, just for a second, I swear it moves a little slower than I do. When I moved into my apartment last spring, I rented a small storage unit a few miles away. It wasn't anything fancy, just a metal box with a roll-up door and a single light bulb inside. I used it for stuff I didn't have space for yet. Old clothes, tools, a few boxes of books, that kind of thing. It was cheap and clean, and supposedly open 24 hours, or at least that's what the website had said. For the first couple of weeks, everything was fine, except they weren't open 24 hours like promised. They closed at 10, but I figured whatever. I can't imagine needing to go in the middle of the night all that much anyway. But I'd stop by every so often, just to drop off a few more boxes. But about a month in, I noticed this faint smell whenever I unlocked the door. It wasn't strong, just a kind of sour, wet odor, like cardboard that got damp and never fully dried out. I figured something had leaked. It wasn't enough to worry about, so I just kept the door open while I was there. The next time I came by, though, it was worse. It was a little sharper, heavier in the air, and I noticed that one of my boxes, the one I'd stacked in the back corner, was turned sideways. I thought maybe I just remembered how I left it, but the more I looked, the more it bothered me. I mentioned it to the manager, this older guy. He was quiet. He always had a thermos of coffee and a portable radio playing the weather. He said that nobody had reported any leaks or any smells, and he checked his list. My lock hasn't been cut or replaced. He said that it was probably the humidity, and that those units sweat a little when it rains. It kind of made sense, so I didn't think that much about it. A week later, though, I went back again, and as soon as I opened the door, the smell hit me so hard that it made my eyes water. It wasn't musty anymore. It was thick and rotten, like spoiled meat or garbage that had been sitting out too long. The same box in the back had the same dark stain spreading across the bottom, and now there was this faint buzzing sound near it. Flies, I think. That's when I decided I could clean it out completely. But before I left, I told the manager I'd be coming back in the morning with gloves and trash bags. He nodded and said he'd be there early. Later that night, when I checked my phone, there was a missed call from the facility. They'd left a voicemail, but when I played it, I didn't hear anyone speaking. Just a slow, steady sound of breathing, right against the receiver. Then a click. I waited a few minutes and then I called back, but there was no answer. The next morning I went straight there, and the smell was even worse than the night before. It hung in the hallway outside of my unit, like it was seeping through the door. I rolled it halfway up, and for a second I thought about calling the manager first, but I didn't want to sound dramatic. So I went in. Everything was just how I left it, except for that same box. The tip across the top had been cut. I pulled it forward, and it was heavier than I remembered. There was a dark stain underneath it on the floor, and when I set it down, the smell got even worse. I started pulling the flaps open, trying to breathe through my sleeve. Inside were a few pieces of folded fabric, what looked like an old gray shirt, soaked through with something dark. On top of it was a small photograph face down. I picked it up. It was a picture of a storage hallway. This hallway. The same concrete floor, same row of doors, and in the far corner of the photo, near where my unit was, you could see a man standing halfway out of frame. Though the man clearly wasn't me, he was wearing my jacket. I felt this cold, sinking feeling in my stomach. Not because of the picture, but because the lighting in the photo was different. It wasn't taken during the day. It looked like it was taken at night, and the timestamp printed on the corner said 3:14 a.m. But again, the facility closes at 10. I dropped the photo back into the box and I stepped out. I went straight to the manager's office, but the door was closed and the lights were off, though the open sign was still lit. I called the number on the wall, but there was no answer. I decided to call back after a few minutes, but nothing. When I looked back down the hallway, I could still see the edge of my unit's door half open. I could swear there was movement inside, just a shadow shifting slightly across the floor, like somebody had walked past the light bulb. I didn't stay to check. I left everything there, the lock, the boxes, all of it, and I drove home. I filed a cancellation the next morning, and I never heard back from the manager. When I went back about a week later to grab my stuff and my deposit, there was a new name on the office door and a different guy behind the counter. I asked the man what happened to the old manager. He said that there'd been a change of staff, and when I went to collect my things, there was nothing in my unit. The new manager said that it was empty when he had taken over. I was beyond frustrated, but there was nothing life-changing in there, but there was a lot of memories. I asked him if the units ever had issues with smells or leaks. He frowned and said, "You must have been in Building D. We don't use that one anymore." I could tell he wasn't willing to give out any more information, so I never found out what exactly was going on. Was the old manager stealing from customers? Was I being targeted specifically? Or was there just some random weirdo hanging out in the area? I'm over it now, but the dread kept me from getting a full night's sleep for weeks. I still drive past that place sometimes. The old section's still fenced off. There's no lights, no signs. But every once in a while, when the wind's blowing just right, I still get hit in the face with that smell.